Cavale Then who's handling the stream? No, no, no. As in, it's me that's joined. Yeah, it's me. But Savi, the CMSC PC stream is not showing the full stream. It's like the in window thing.
Testing 1, 2, check. Check, testing. Check 1, 2, testing 1, 2. Last time running a check, testing 1, 2. Test. Testing 1, 2, check. Well, alright then, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to you all. Welcome to round 4 of the CMSC iRacing Championship with F4 cars. My name is Nevan Jayawardena, joining you back again from the commentary box all the way over in Belarus. Today our race is located at the ever famous Tsukuba circuit in Japan. Of course, our apologies for last week's race. We weren't able to stream it as there were some complications, but we have returned and the live feed is being brought to you by CMSC and Chama Computers. We want to thank you all for joining us here on the live stream at this wonderful racetrack here. For those of you who are no stranger to the sporting world, I'm sure everybody knows about Tsukuba. Very small but fun track, and I'm sure the best location to try out these F4 cars. And as we see the fight for the championship, pardon my slip there, still raging on between our drivers, and we are on board Tehan Eranga in that very distinctly liveried APMC F4 car, and we are waiting as practice will soon finish in around 12.5 minutes. But nevertheless, I'm sure we're in for a good race today, ladies and gentlemen. We have our returning racers of Shamal Mendis, Brian Pereira, Tehane Ranga, Shivan Vitarana, Savi Ratnayaka, Tiago Pereira, Padmaka, Vijay Gunawardana, Harshara Dharmadasa, Shehan Silva, Buddhiga Chaturanga, Fauzul Alim, and many, many more racers. So stick around, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be a really good race. ladies and gentlemen, with nearly a minute to go in the session, it seems as if the heavens have opened up. And are we looking at a potential wet race today here at Scuba as we follow a little mini battle between Tiago Pereira and Harshila Dharmadasa, and the rain catching Tiago a little off guard with a bit of a lock up there into turn one. We've never had a wet race here, and as we see, the drivers slowly getting caught up to the sudden downpour. This is going to be a very, very interesting race, and I think all the drivers weren't expecting the rain. But then again, iRacing being the simulation it is, the rain, I think, has thrown around grip levels, and there we go, there's another driver who's lost it, and that's Praveen Peter with a new livery this time for the championship. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, with 10 seconds left in the session, as we move on to qualifying, I think the rain is still on. I think we're going to have a wet qualifying here. This is going to be very interesting for all the drivers to try and battle, as there we see Gessi Tahangamage going a little wide there, losing grip into the Dunlop bridge, and there's contact! There's massive contact, and there's drivers spinning everywhere, but lucky for them, there was just practice, and the session is over, and the heavens have opened. Ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be a wet qualifying. This is the ultimate nerf for all drivers, in the sense that the rain really brings out the driver's skill, and it's going to be very interesting to see which driver can masterfully control their car around this mini circuit. But don't get fooled, ladies and gentlemen. Tsukuba is by no means an easy circuit. Even though it is mini, it still poses a very, very, very challenging set of corners that everybody just needs sheer precision to get a proper lap in. As well as with the rain, that's going to further test the drivers in their attempts to try and claw out a fast lap. And I don't know, but have the drivers gone out on rain tires, or are they still on their slicks in an attempt to try and get a lap in on those slicks before the rain takes over? It seems as if they are on slicks. So now we have Teha Neranga, Shyama Mendes, and I believe that's Brian Pereira chasing after on slicks in an attempt to try and get a quick lap in before the rain fully takes over the track. And now we're on board Shevan Vitarana. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be interesting. There's Arsha Diftika in a very different colored car this time, a green livery as opposed to his black and teal livery last time. Where is everyone going to stand as we are following Gessi Tahangamage now? Down in the first corner, and there's a car reverse down the start-finish straight, who I believe has had a little bit of an overstay, I say. And there's Arsha Diftika trying to go the long way around on Gessi Tahangamage, trying to overtake him and try to set a faster lap, but Gessi still holds that spot. And there's Arshula, I believe. Arshula, who has had a scary lockup, and I'm pretty sure he's gonna be double checking the front wing on that one, but my goodness, that was very close. And Stella driving, and there we see in the top left, ladies and gentlemen, the first few laps have been set. Teha Neranga taking pole position with 53 seconds. You see, ladies and gentlemen, this track is very short, and it's sub-minute with these cars, really. Usually this track is used for racing touring cars or spec cars like the MX-5 Cup Series, but with the championship, we have brought the F4 cars here to Scuba, and now we're going to see where the drivers rank. And now we have Teha Neranga in pole position with a 53.048, followed by Shyama Mendes in P2, Brian Pereira in P3, Savi Ratnayaka in P4, Buddhiga Chaturanga in P5, Tiago Pereira in P6, and Praveen Peter in P7. Now, remember, ladies and gentlemen, this, I believe, will set the order for the reverse grid, which means the top 8 will be reversed compared to their qualifying position. So as it stands, I believe Tiago and Praveen are going to be in 3rd and 2nd respectively. So this is going to be very interesting. But that does not mean that they will lose going out in a fast position. I believe that for the main race, I think they're going to be put back to their original spots. But it's interesting to see where they stand as Tiago Pereira improves and is now in P5. All these drivers out on slicks, but I don't think I don't know if it's a visual thing, but I believe the drivers are out on rain tires because I don't think they can be driving out on the slicks at this point because it is pouring, and I believe they're out on rain tires. So yes, all the drivers dialing their position, and of course there's a little bit of a lockup there for Thiago Pereira. Well, not a lockup, but he's lost traction on the front right. But that all important slipstream is what drivers would want down this little back straight here, and then it's a long swooping right hander where anything and everything could go wrong. It's all a matter of keeping the car under control, going around the final corner. Where's Thiago going to stack up with that slipstream? It seems, no, that was not a better lap, but he will go again, and it's just going to be an all-out shoot to the finish with like 11 minutes, pardon me, on the clock. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are currently chasing after the cow. There's Buddhiga Chaturanga in the wall, but it's the qualifying session, so I believe he can just go back to the pits. But that was a foul crash for Buddhiga Chaturanga there with his rear wing and everything off. But these drivers can reset the cars, it's no problem, as Shyama Mendes just dips into the pits, I believe, to change a setup. Oh no, not setup, my mistake. Maybe to switch tires. Because remember, ladies and gentlemen, the setups here for these cars are fixed. There is no advantage in the setups here for all the drivers. Everything is fixed. It is a spec series. All the drivers are equalized. It's all up to skill. So, Tehan Eranga, the man currently, as I see, somebody else has gone off the track. And that's Shehan Silva in another different livery for today. It's going to be interesting to try and keep up with the drivers now following the last live stream where all the drivers had, well, not all, some of the drivers had different liveries. But it's still going to pose a threat as Gesit Ahangamage is struggling a little bit there with Praveen Peter riding his gearbox. But he manages to keep it neat and tidy going under the Dunlop Bridge now. Tehan Eranga, the man still leading the way, followed by Shyama Mendes and Brian Pereira in P3. And that's Thiago Pereira in P4, Buddhiga Chaturanga in P6, and Savi Ratnayaka in P7. And Praveen Peter rounding off the top 8, which effectively means Praveen Peter, the man, going to be on pole for the first race, I believe. Still following Gesita Hangamage as he rounds the final corner. Will he be able to set a faster lap time? Unfortunately, I don't think he did enough there. Now switching over from Gesit Ahangamage to Shevan Vitarana now, the man in P4. All these drivers still scrambling to try and get a lap in before 8 minutes is over. The rain still pouring away. It's not affecting the live stream visually, but there is rain, ladies and gentlemen, as we follow Thiago Pereira and a wide running Yusuf. Can Thiago improve his time? Where does he stand? I don't see a leaderboard change. I believe Thiago has retained his former position. Now we're back. Yes, that is. Thiago has retained his former position in P5. Now riding on board the man in P1. That is Tehan Eranga. And that's extremely close for Buddhiga Chaturanga there. And I don't think Tehan Eranga would be too pleased with that. Buddhiga Chaturanga going extremely slow around the final hairpin there. I think effectively slowing down Tehan there for his lap, but that's okay. Tehan is still chasing after. Look at this. Amazing. And that's Tehan Eranga with a cheeky little move here in qualifying, trying to get past Buddhiga Chaturanga there. But Tehan Eranga still holds P1. No one has made any attempt to gain on him as he's set of 52.9. Oh, I missed that. Tehan has improved from his 53.0 to a 53.946. So, oh, there's Tehan who has spun also at the sector 1 corner, the little sharp left-hander of sector 1. And now we're watching a wonderful side-by-side battle between Praveen Peter and Buddhiga Chaturanga going into the final sharp right-hander, the hairpin, if you will, down to the back straight of Tsukuba. 6 minutes left on the clock, ladies and gentlemen. The order is not yet finalized. I say provisionally. All the provisional orders have been set. We are yet to see the final orders. It's all to play for as the track obviously evolves. And once that dry line forms, should the rain not be hard enough, I'm sure all the drivers are scrambling to try and get to said line as Arshadiftika looks for a cheeky little move down the inside of Gesita Hangamage again. And Gesit still trying to fight his way. No, Gesit actually leaves Arshadiftika to go for that fast lap. And I think that is, yes, Harshada Dharmadas is still in that jet black liveried F4 car, also led through by Gesit there, as everybody is scrambling to try and set a lap. Harshada, remember, coming, setting a P3 time in our last live stream out at Bolton Park. But unfortunately, the lower position today at P10, I believe he wants to try and gain on and capitalize on his pace here, because he still has a lot left in that tank, I'm sure. And as a spin of the line, I believe there was someone who was very, very, very keen on trying to set a fast lap time, and these two drivers might need to watch out for him on the straight. No, he's got it wrong. That's Gesit actually, who's spun round, unfortunately. It's Brian Pereira once again with Buddhiga Chaturanga, as Buddhiga lets him through as well. Brian Pereira and Shyama Mendes, the two guys still trying to chase after that P1. Everyone is trying to chase after P1, but the gap is mere seconds between everyone. As I see, if you look at the leaderboard, ladies and gentlemen, the lap times are getting increasingly longer. Is that potentially due to the rain just completely dampening the track and losing out that all-important dry grip? Well, when the track gets wetter, the times get slower. So it seems as if all the drivers are struggling now to keep up with Tehan Naranga's 52-second lap time, 52.9-second lap time. Where does this mean? What does this mean for all the drivers? Are we seeing the final order right now? Only time will tell if we see that this is the final order. We're yet to see what happens as time progresses. Nearly 4 minutes to go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, with 30 seconds left in the qualifying session and the time's not getting any faster, I believe it's due to the ever-dampening Tsukuba circuit track. I think we have your order for the race here for round 4 of the iRacing Championship, and that is Tehane Ranga in pole, Shyama Mendes in P2, Brian Pereira in P3, Shevan Vitarana, who just set a lap time, could not improve, P4, Thiago Pereira P5, Buddhiga Chaturanga P6, Savi Ratnayaka P7, and Charit Amarasinghe in P8 will be your top 8. And now for the first heat, that effectively means Charit Amarasinghe will line up in P1, followed by Savi Ratnayaka in the front row, and Buddhiga Chaturanga in P3 for heat 1. So, it was the rain, it did dampen the track, and now the drivers, it's all to play for really. With heat 1, the top 8 has been reversed, and that means Tehane Ranga is going to start from P8, followed by Shyama Mendes in P7 and Brian Pereira in P6. A lot of work for the top 3 of qualifying to do there, but that gives the drivers in 8th, 7th and 6th a chance here. And that's Savi in P2. So now we wait as all the drivers line up here at Tsukuba. We wait for the green flag. All right, ladies and gentlemen, 20 seconds left on the session timer for the official starting of Heat 1 as we wait for all the drivers to line up on the grid. You can see Charit turning his wheel to try and see if the inputs work. And now we wait for the green flag.
Green flag, green flag.
It's green, green, green. So Heat 1 is underway as Savi Ratnayaka seems to have got the jump on Charit Amarasinghe there. Savi Ratnayaka, Charit Amarasinghe. Now we see the track looking extremely wet as the lights are flashing away. It's Charit Amarasinghe and Savi Ratnayaka in a deadlock for P1, but it seems Savi has backed off, and there's the spray coming off the cars. There's chaos in the back there as Thiago Pereira has gone off the track as well. Shevan Vitarana taking a wide run alongside Brian Pereira, who has fought his way up to P3 now. What a charge by Brian Pereira as who goes wide there? That's Shevan Vitarana. Thiago Pereira up in P4 now, followed by and Shevan Vitarana has had a major downfall as iRacing decides to follow Shevan Vitarana. We don't know what's happening up in front, but Charit Amarasinghe still holds P1, and there's Arshad Dambadasa challenging the likes of Shevan Vitarana. They're down in P10 now. And yes, we're back in the front. Charit Amarasinghe in P1, followed by Savi Ratnayaka in P2 as Savi looking down the inside. No, that's Charit Amarasinghe who has gone wide. Savi Ratnayaka is now your leader of the Heat 1 in the round 4. In round 4 of the championship. I'm losing my words, ladies and gentlemen, as Thiago Pereira now looks for a move on Brian Pereira here. And there's more contact. Somebody's gone on the car. That's Praveen Peter, who has unfortunately been clouted by Arshadittika there, and that's Buddhiga Chaturanga leading that. That's Praveen Peter, who's off the track into the barriers, into the gravel trap. That's chaos, as you can see, ladies and gentlemen. The rain being a great equalizer here between all the drivers. There's no more. Well, not no more. There's very little mechanical grip now that the track is damp, but my goodness, there is absolute chaos here as Heat 1 has been thrown into an absolute disarray. As now we're following on both Arshadittika and Gesi Tahangamage. Who is that? Gesi Tahangamage? I want to say that is. Arshad has been pushed by Yusuf there. Unfortunately, Yusuf is on. But we're going to see what happens now And there is absolute chaos right now in this race. Xavi Ratnayaka is still the man in the lead, followed by Brian Pereira and Thiago Pereira. And Tehan Eranga, the man who qualified pole, is now in P4 and is now looking to get past Brian Pereira there in an effort to try and charge up the field as Tehan goes for a wider line on Thiago there. But now we have trains forming effectively as Xavi Ratnayaka is pulling away and Brian Pereira, there's a deadlock for P2 between Thiago Pereira, Brian Pereira, as Thiago goes for a very brave move down the inside there, but manages to keep it very clean, but unfortunately that was a mistake as sent Brian pulling away, and here comes Tehan Eranga chasing after him in that APMC car, but Thiago is going to hold his composure in the McLaren car, the McLaren liveried F4 car I should say, round the final corner down the main straight now here at Tsukuba, evidently further away from Brian Pereira. He's going to have to pull a lot of effort there to try and catch up to Brian as he goes incredibly wide into the first corner. Is that another way to get a faster line? It seems as such because now Thiago is very close to Brian Pereira. And I believe he's trying to extract as much downforce as possible. It can be done if you keep your nose out of the following car for just into a corner. You can catch a little bit of downforce, and it seems that is working for Thiago as they are practically skating across the track, trying to keep the cars under control here in this damn condition. As Brian Pereira goes a little wide, Thiago Pereira looking up the inside of Brian Pereira. Two international drivers, Thiago racing from Canada, Brian from Australia, and there is a lot of work needs to be done between these two drivers. Can it be done? It seems not this time because they've settled back into their previous positions, but Tehan has got a bucket of popcorn waiting to see what happens with this fight. As this Brian who's dipped his tires into the grass and he's spun round, and there's the chaos, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, he's dipped his tires into the grass and Brian has been spun round, unfortunately taking him out of the fight for P2 and P3 potentially as of now with 10 minutes roughly to go, 10 and a half I should say. But now Harshala, who has had a major charge of the field, is now looking to try and chase after Brian Pereira, but unfortunate for Brian Pereira there, who has, there's another car that's gone wide there, but unfortunately for Brian Pereira, he's gone wide and there's another car that's practically drifting it here at Tsukuba, which is also a very famous drift track, and I believe that's Gesita Hangamage, who has also spun at the main straight. Unfortunate for him as well. But yes, as I said before, Tsukuba, track used for various disciplines, not just touring car racing, but also drifting. So it seems that these drivers cannot escape the drift here at Tsukuba, especially when it's damp. But we move on with the Heat 1 race, and that's where on board Praveen Peter. Not anymore now with Buddhika Chaturanga, who is keeping behind them. They were chasing Shevan Taranan, and there's another car that's gone round. The aquaplaning is deadly here as he's trying to rejoin the track, but has had a very bad shout, and that's a very dodgy rejoin there from Buddhika Chaturanga. There's he nearly clouds the... Okay, no, he did cloud. And that was a collision with Shyama Mendis, and I do not know what's going to happen there post Heat 1 race, and that was an unsafe rejoin from Buddhika Chaturanga there, nearly ending Shyama Mendis' race there and quite potentially his championship run with this one race. But my goodness, and that's Shyama Mendis coming in the pits. Was there actual damage? There's Charit. Is that Charit? No, there's Walker. Praveen Peter, who's gone up. That's Charit Amarasinghe. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. That's Charit Amarasinghe, who has also taken up Praveen Peter. I'm losing breath, ladies and gentlemen. This is quite the pandemonium we have here at Tsukuba. But Praveen Peter does not seem to have any issues with this car, and now we are on board the top 3 runners now with Xavi Ratnayaka, Thiago Pereira and Tehan Eranga now chasing after Mr. Xavi Ratnayaka, the man in the blue and green F4 car there, I believe with the number 24. But yes, Thiago Pereira in the McLaren and Tehan Eranga in the APMC livery car. Thiago looking for that opportunistic move down the inside again that caught Brian Pereira off guard. But now Xavi not moving a single bit. Savi still holding his composure, coming down the back straight of Tsukuba. These three drivers, I do not want to initiate a curse, as I believe Savi has gone. Oh no, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that was my fault. The commentator's curse is real, and Savi Ratnayak has unfortunately gone wide and dipped his tires into the grass at Tsukuba, and Tehan Eranga has just got a front row seat to all of this drama, who has sat there patiently watching Thiago Pereira's gearbox chasing up the field, and now Tehan Eranga is setting himself up for quite potentially a P2 and maybe even a P1. And unfortunate for Savi there, but let's never say never, ladies and gentlemen. Savi is still in the fight as he's skating that car around. I don't know what happened to Savi there. No, he's still in the fight, yes. Can see the drivers, especially the people chasing after some all-important positions, are practically skating those cars around Tsukuba here. And that just goes to show that it's all fine line, really. The fine line between control and loss of it. But yeah, they're trying to keep that balance in so that they can like charge up the field properly. Yes, I am currently at a loss for words. I do not know what's going on with this chaos. I'm struggling to keep up with it as well. But we still have Thiago Pereira and Tehan Eranga absolutely duking it out to try and get P1. And Savi patiently sitting behind, playing the patient game to try and chase up the two drivers and regain what was once the P1 spot. But Thiago and Tehan practically keeping it incredibly clean, as Tehan has got a faster run, and is he going to look for a move down the inside of Thiago Pereira? They're side by side into the hairpin, but this could benefit Savi as the drivers are slow, and yes, here comes Savi, who is slightly closer than what he was before. But now we're looking to see where these two drivers are going to stack up as they're going to come into, as we see little grass clippings being thrown up into the side, into the camera shot there. As they're coming up on traffic, are we going to see blue flags? I'm sure Thiago and Tehan would want blue flags. Let the drivers through, and I'm sure Savi will be saying the same. And yes, the drivers let them through. That's useful to let them through, and that's a good deal for the drivers here as they catch up to traffic. And there's Buddhiga Chaturanga there in the front of Thiago Pereira, lap traffic. And this is where Tsukuba is going to start to become a little bit of a problem. There's so many lap cars that the drivers, it's mobile chicanes basically. All the drivers just kind of have to chase after each of the cars, and yeah, there we go. Buddhiga Chaturanga is practically holding Thiago up, not moving out of the way, and he's in his own fight. And both the cars, and there's Buddhiga, who's got in the way of this title fight, I say, P1 fight, and that's let Thiago Pereira put away, and that's not ideal for Buddhiga Chaturanga there, and I believe Savi has also got held up quite badly. But yeah, there you go, ladies and gentlemen, there's a spin, and that's Arshadiptika who spun, nearly getting involved with the front fight, as, oh my goodness, Arshadiptika, there we go, rejoins safely now. But my goodness, that was extremely close there from Arshadiptika. Thiago Pereira and Tehan Eranga back again. Right there, within striking distance practically. It's all about who's going to make the move where as they go under the Dunlop Bridge. And the ever so slight left-hander that makes the car scared as Tehan looks for that wide run. And that was a fake. Both these drivers keeping it absolutely perfect. But unfortunately for Savi, who's probably got held up by Buddhiga Chaturanga there. He's probably, now he's been let through. And that's not good for Savi, who now has effectively nearly 3 seconds to chase after Tehan Eranga. Now as we briefly move away, watching this little battle for oh no, that's Tehan Eranga spun! And he's lost his rear wing! My goodness, wait, was that his rear wing? Something fell off his car, but my goodness, and there's cars flying around everywhere as the rain just gets stronger, and that's Shehan Silva, Praveen Peter, and Tehan Eranga spun round here at Tsukuba. My goodness, there is absolute chaos, and Shehan Silva is the first to run without a rear wing. That's going to give him a great advantage down this straight, but I believe he's going to pit to negate the damage and try to fix it up. here in this race. Oh no, he's not going to pit. He's going to choose to go with a rear wing, Formula V effectively. But my goodness, that is going to be one horribly imbalanced car there. But kudos to Shehan Silva for trying to keep it on track and fight it out. Joining on board, Harshada Damadasa now. Chasing after. Oh, okay, we've dipped away. Ras. That's not ideal. That's not what he would want for the first corner, but he absolutely keeps it on track. Masterful handling there from Shyama Mendes. And behind him is Arshad Iftika, who is not in the fight with Shyama Mendes. So I believe he's going to try and keep away from Shyama Mendes' charge up the field. But yes, the rain catching even the best drivers here as Tehan Eranga spun at the main straight, now giving Savi Ratnayaka the P2 position. But he is 2 seconds behind Savi Ratnayaka, and Savi is 4 seconds behind Thiago Pereira. So what's to come of this event as we see the car in P15. Look at the right hand of the screen, ladies and gentlemen, as Arshada goes a little wide there in P5. But yes, as you look at the screen, as you look at your screen, on the right of your screen, you can see Thiago being separated by the car in P13. And yes, that is quite the charge there. As Arshad Iftika goes round the final corner. Wow, ladies and gentlemen, please excuse me, I am tripping over my own words. Yes, a corner that is caught off multiple drivers. He's still catching drivers off guard as Tehan Eranga is on a charge to try and get past Savi Ratnayaka now. He has regained his spot as Savi goes a little wide, but effectively using the natural camber of the corner to try and gain some speed. It does not look effective as Tehan Eranga and Savi Ratnayaka practice side by side going down the back straight of Tsukuba. Tehan moves to the inside and Savi is going to keep his P2 position, but at what cost? He's going a little wide there, Savi Ratnayaka, but he keeps it clean. Savi still holds P2. Can Tehan Eranga get a move into P1, turn 1 done? No, he does not. It is still Savi Ratnayaka in P2 and Tehan Eranga in P3. Thiago Pereira, cool. As always, ladies and gentlemen, we see the comments absolutely, we see your live chats absolutely spamming the numerous amount of votes in the chat for Thiago, Savi, and many other drivers. Again, at the final corner, as I said earlier, that corner catching out the best of drivers, still catching out drivers, and that's Tehan Eranga around, unfortunately, as he tries to scramble for grip, and I believe that is Tehan waiting to join safely. Yes, that is Tehan waiting to join safely. And now, because he had to wait, he is now out of the running as... No, wait, my apologies, the race is over. Thiago Pereira in P1 and Tehan is spun at the final corner, unfortunately, removing him from the fight for P2, leaving Thiago Pereira in P1, Savi Ratnayaka in P2, and Brian Pereira in P3 for Heat 1, followed by Tehan Eranga and Harshula Dharmadasa in P5. What a charge up the field. P6 goes to Shevan Vitarna, P7 to Praveen Peter, Shyama Mendes in P8, Yusuf Isam in P9, and Buddhiga Chaturanga rounds off the top 10. Ladies and gentlemen, a chaotic Heat 1, but the end of Heat 1. There's your top 3, ladies and gentlemen. Thiago Pereira in P1 takes the win here for Heat 1. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for, look to the top left, we see the session says B main. It's now time for the next race. with Shyama Mendis lining up in P1, followed by Praveen Peter in P2 and Shevan Vitarana in P3. Harshad Ramadasa takes P4. Tehane Ranga takes P5. Brian Pereira in P6. Savi Ratnayaka in P7 and Thiago Pereira in P8. The reverse order from the previous race, the top 8 of the previous race now reversed, and Shyama Mendis is now leading the way, followed by Praveen Peter and Shevan Vitarana. Harshad Ramadas in P4. Now that he's up there, I believe he's going to try to make a move as he goes green, green, green. And that's the second race underway as Thiago Pereira pulls out from a very slow start. Shyama Mendis still holding his P1, followed by Praveen Peter. That's Shevan Vitarana looking for a very brave move around the outside here in the rain. Very risky, but a very effective move here at Scuba as the drivers are relatively clean this time round. Effective, I say that, and there's a car that's lost it a little bit at the back there. But yes, the drivers now anticipating the lower grip here at Scuba. Puddles on the track everywhere. Team broke for a second there, but I am back. Has there been absolute carnage? I don't believe so. It looks like everybody is still clean. Oh no, that's Arshad Iftikhar who's gone a little wide there. Apologies, ladies and gentlemen. I believe there are some stream signal issues, but we will bring the action to you as soon as possible. The drivers are still pretty much racing, but we are working on a fix, ladies and gentlemen, so stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us from the YouTube stream. Unfortunately, we are trying to fix the stream. Please bear with us. We should be able to bring you the action as soon as possible. So, ladies and gentlemen, a little bit of an update. Unfortunately, the stream has crashed, but we will bring you the final race very soon, so stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe the second race has ended. Now we are joining back into the final race. The fourth wall has indeed, the fourth wall is indeed working. And now I believe we should see the second one start up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I believe the stream is back up and running. Now we are in the warm-up phase for the final race, and we have opened to the side of two cars who have spun round at Tsukuba. The track's still damp as ever. As for the results of race 2, it will be posted on the official Instagram page, so please check over there for the final results of race 2. But with warm-up now finishing soon, we should be able to get the third and final race underway. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the feature race with Tehane Ranga in P1, Savi Ratnayaka in P2, and Shevan Vitarana in P3. Now, from last time out, I accidentally mistook the race for laps as opposed to time, but I believe this time round it's going to be for time, whichever comes first. 30 laps and 30 minutes. Tehane Ranga in P1, Savi Ratnayaka in P2, Shevan Vitarana in P3, Tiago Pereira in P4. It's green, green, green. We are underway for the final race, the feature race. Savi Ratnayaka back in P2, but this time Tehane Ranga cuts to the inside, blocking off Savi Ratnayaka from making a move. That's Shevan Vitarana going the long way around. There's chaos at the front already. And that's Shevan Vitarana, who has spun round but has managed to keep everything else clear. That's very good from Shevan's part there. As the drivers now focus for the rest of the race. It's gonna be a long one, ladies and gentlemen, but here we go. The feature race is back and the live stream is also back. So welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are following Tiago Pereira now as he is desperately trying to chase after the likes of Savi Ratnayaka and Brian Pereira, and Tehane Ranga has already pulled away. There's lots of drivers going for that V-shaped line effectively in that final hairpin down to the back straight. Tight inline, going out and then cutting back in. The spray still deadlier than ever. Remember, all these drivers being forced to cockpit camp on iRacing. But there's another spin. That's Arshad Iftikhar, who's gone round again at the final corner. Unfortunately for him, that corner has been an absolute nightmare this entire race weekend. But yes, we are following Arshad Iftikhar now. And yes, Arshad Iftikhar now in P13. As iRacing choose to follow Arshad for the rest of this lap. We want to see what's happening up in front. Thank you very much. We're following on board Yasit Ahangam again now. As he's trying to chase after the likes of Charit Amarasinghe now. This is the battle for P8. All the drivers still keeping their composure, but look to the right of the screen, ladies and gentlemen. P2, Brian Pereira, very close to Tiago Pereira. Can we get cameras on that if we can? There we go, Tiago Pereira now chasing after Savi Ratnaik and Praveen Peter also behind Tiago Pereira. All the drivers now hyper aware basically of the lower grip conditions, and we can see there for a brief split second as Praveen Peter goes round and manages to actually style on everybody else in the race, albeit losing a few seconds to Tiago Pereira, but he kept it very clean there. And very, very, very neatly affected spin, one could say, going for style points there, but unfortunately he's lost some points to Tiago there. Points, I say, time, I mean, my apologies. But yes, now we're following Gesit Tahangamage again, and now Fawzul Alim, the man who was in our last live stream out at Bolton Park, round 2, an absolutely dominant figure, seemingly hampered by the rain this time round, or the traffic in the rain. But looking to go around, and then Tavit Amarasinghe around, and he nearly, oh my goodness, he definitely hit Gesit Tahangamage there, and that I believe was an unsafe rejoin, but my goodness, that was nearly a race ender from Gesit Tahangamage, who did incredibly well to avoid going into the wall and ending a race. But my goodness, that was very close. I believe the race director, Mr. Denan Abesekar, is going to have quite the amount of complaints after the race as Shyama Mendes now dips in to try and stay away from the inside line, because staying too inside and staying too far outside could either get your tires a little onto the grass, effectively ending your race by spinning you around. But Shyama Mendes in P13, not where he wanted to be, not ideal for the championship fight here. But now we move up the field to Shehan Silva, who is right behind Buddhiga Chaturanga now, as they go under the Dunlop Bridge, skating the cars. And there's a car around, that's Yusuf Isam. Unfortunately for him, that was traffic. My goodness, my apologies, ladies and gentlemen. I can't keep up with the chaos, but there was debris everywhere from Yusuf Isam there. But now we're following on board this train with Buddhiga Chaturanga and Shehan Silva and Gesit Tahangamage leading this train. The fight for P7, as Gesit keeps it very clean, followed by Buddhiga and Shehan and Charit Amarasinghe, who spun earlier. Meanwhile, the fight for P1 and P3, the P3 fight has seemingly loosened up a bit for Savi there, as he's now left trying to chase after Brian Pereira and Tehan. But yes, Tehan Eranga and Brian Pereira very close to each other, if you can see on the right side of the screen there, ladies and gentlemen. But look at this train with Gesit, Buddhiga, Shehan and Charit all incredibly close. Barely seconds separating these drivers. Everyone is close as Shehan dips to the outside. Is that going to be a chaotic move from Shehan there, as he's going to try and make a move round the inside of Gesit Tahangamage as he looks for it, but says no, and Shehan is going to come back around, and what a move! Shehan Silva on the inside of Gesit Tahangamage, and Gesit is going to try and reclaim that spot back. Will he? As he's going to the inside, but that's going to compromise his line a little bit, as there's Chaturanga who's gone wide again, and I think that's removed him from the P7 fight. And yes, effectively he has a lot of work to do to catch back up to P7. But now Shehan Silva, the only benefactor there, in P7, and Gesit Tahangamage in P8, followed by Buddhiga Chaturanga in P9. It's all kicking off here, ladies and gentlemen, in the final feature race of the round 4, and there's somebody gone extremely wide. That's Arshad Iftikhar with a corner I believe he will probably hit for the rest of this race, and that's the final one, especially in these damp conditions. And now we're on board the leader, Tehan Eranga, and Brian Pereira looking extremely closer than ever, and that's Tahangamage who's gone wide. Oh dear, his fight, or his lead at P7 was P8 in compromise, and Buddhiga Chaturanga will capitalize on that and pull away as we go back to Tehan Eranga and Brian Pereira absolutely duking it out into turn 1. Then it's on to the left-right chicane. I say chicane, but like a wider complex of corners as Brian Pereira gets all crossed up and he goes into the barrier, seemingly with no damage, but my goodness, he gets it all crossed up. And that's where Tsukuba Sector 1 can catch any driver off guard. And Brian Pereira has lost a lot of time now to Tehan Neranga, leaving Savi Ratnayaka with a little bit more of an easier job now. And I say that, and now we're on board Savi Ratnayaka. Look to this, Thiago Pereira unlapping himself, lapping traffic. And the fight still rages on. Thiago Pereira chasing after Brian Pereira in P3, and Savi, hang on a minute, Savi, wait, does Brian Pereira, I believe he's gone slow because Brian Pereira has fallen out of the standings, and it's now Savi Ratnayaka in P2 and Thiago Pereira in P3. Let's look to the minimap, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, that is Brian Pereira who has fallen back, and unfortunate for him, he is now having to chase after Thiago Pereira, and that's quite the gap we'll have to close. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, the top two, I should say, is now Tehan Neranga and Savi Ratnayaka. Thiago Pereira chasing after in P3. This is shaping up to be an excellent race for Thiago Pereira, winning the first race as well as coming P3 now, and for Savi Ratnayaka, don't forget, having an excellent result in the first heat, and now the third race. Don't know where everybody finished in the second race. That will be revealed on the Instagram post that will come to you shortly after the race. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, the race still goes on as we are following on board Padmaka, and that is Padmaka in P14. Arshadiptika, he's chasing after Arshadiptika, and then it's Charit Amarasinghe who has fallen to P15, unfortunately for him, with a few spins and mishaps, but he's still in the race. Never say never. We still have 20 minutes to go. 20 minutes 30 seconds roughly, and we have completed 8 laps. So depending on which one finishes first, I believe, see where everyone stacks up. Tehan Neranga having an absolutely stellar drive all the way in P1, pulling a near 7-second gap on Savi Ratnayaka, who is effectively pulling a 4-second gap on 3-second gap on Thiago Pereira. This is shaping up to be a more controlled race because now the drivers at least know where they stand when it comes to the grip of this track. And yes, we are on board the man leading the way right now, that's Tehan Neranga. But Fawzul Alim setting the fastest lap so far. Brian Pereira falling to P7 in the standings. I believe he has some form of damage after that barrier collision, trying to chase after Tehan, but only time will tell. Fawzul Alim, oh wait, that's Thiago Pereira, who has lost a bit of time there, and now Thiago Pereira is in P4. I do believe there is a pit stop in here, and yes, look at that, Tehan Neranga lapping the cars, and the cars getting out of the way of the traffic. Beautifully done from the back markers there. I believe there is a pit stop in this, ladies and gentlemen. Brian Pereira setting 59.9 in the rain, while all the other drivers are setting nearly 1 minute 2 seconds or 1 minute 1 second. My goodness, Brian Pereira is on a flyer. Has Brian Pereira pitted and got his damage repaired and got new tires maybe? My goodness, Brian is on a flyer. Only time will tell, ladies and gentlemen, but for now, the top 3 is now Tehan Neranga, Savi Ratnayaka and Fawzul Alim in P3. The man who had a dominant charge at Alton Park is now having that dominant charge once again here at Tsukuba. This is going to be interesting come the end of the race. All to play for, ladies and gentlemen. This is the final race for round 4 of the iRacing Championship. with Praveen Peter and Brian Pereira having a little mini drag race down the back straight. As Brian Pereira goes up to P5 now, he is chasing after the cars in front. He's trying to get back up to the top. With Brian Pereira, it's very well doable. So, setting that 59-second lap time, I believe he could be able to charge up the field should the other drivers also get hampered a little bit with traffic. But it's all to play for still, with 17 minutes left on the clock. Ladies and gentlemen, with nearly half the session over, we return to Brian Pereira, who has had an incredible charge up the field into P4 after that near race-ending collision in the barriers when trying to chase after Tehan, but he still has nearly 13 seconds to catch up to the drivers up in front, and he has 10 seconds practically separating himself from Fawzul Alim there. It's going to be a very interesting one. And I believe that there are some drivers in the pits. I think that's Savi Ratnayaka in the pits. And yes, that is Savi who has just left the pits. So yes, there are pit stops in this race, bringing Fawzul Alim back to the top. And I think with Brian Pereira pitting that early, I think that has benefited him in the long run, because now all he had to do is just charge up the field. Savi Ratnayaka in a net P3 so far, and Thiago Pereira down in P7. I think all the other drivers still have to make their pit stops, so well, we can't really say anything yet. But as it stands, Tehan and Anga still pulling a major 10-second gap or near 11-second gap on Fawzul Alim, followed by Savi Ratnayaka in P3 and Brian Pereira in P4. Now we're on board this. We are oh my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, I am so sorry. We are on board this train led by Arshadithika and Padmaka Vijayagunavardhana as somebody just glitched out of the race and no, he's back. Tari Amarasinghe, and behind him is Shevan Vitarana, who is also chasing after Padmaka Vijayagunavardhana and Arshadithika in P10. Everybody practically driving very close to each other. Traffic galore, of course, Tsukuba being a very small circuit. So the challenge is not only driving this small circuit in the damp conditions, but it's also to navigate past lap cars. And I believe most of the drivers find it very difficult to let cars by, especially into specific sections, because slowing down at the wrong section means a massive time gain for other cars, as Padmaka Vijayagunavardhana gets extremely close there to the likes of Arshadithika, as there is Charit Amarasinghe looking for a dummy move on Padmaka as he pulls a dummy but still dips to the inside. Is Charit Amarasinghe going to make a move here on Padmaka Vijayagunavardhana? He dips to the inside, now coming down the main straight. Is he going to make a move into turn 1? As Arshadithika is very squeaky on the brakes, and there is Charit Amarasinghe looking for a move on the inside, pushing. Not near pushing, but Padmaka going extremely wide. And yes, there is Charit Amarasinghe up in upper position into P12 and Padmaka falling down to P13. Meanwhile, Praveen P to the man in P4 trying to fight off a feisty. Who is that? I don't know what car that is, but I think that is Shevan Vitarana. But it's Praveen P to the man in P5 caught up in this lap traffic battle. As of right now, there's Charit Amarasinghe around again. And this time he's lost his rear wing. Now, if Charit Amarasinghe has not pit yet, this is the ideal time to pit for him. But that was a mistake I believe he wouldn't want to see, and this is a race day to forget for him. Having multiple mistakes, unfortunately, but even the best drivers make mistakes, and unfortunately for Charit, it's not today, and I say that, and Praveen goes wide. That's P5 gone extremely, P4 gone wide. I believe that's, yes, Praveen Peter in P4. And now Buddhika Chaturanga has come out of seemingly nowhere. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a fight between Buddhika Chaturanga, Savi Ratnayaka and Praveen Peter, who has somehow stumbled his way into this fight. Now Savi Ratnayaka, you can see a little further up the field there, you can see Savi Ratnayaka getting extremely close to Buddhika Chaturanga, who has been an incredible force to overtake this weekend, this race day. But we cut away for a brief second, and now we join Padmaka Vijayagunavardhana again, chasing after Shevan Vitarana. And we're back with Savi Ratnayaka trying to chase after Buddhika Chaturanga for P4. Savi's going to go outside, and I believe he's going to go the long Buddhika Chaturanga as Savi makes a clinical outside overtake on Buddhika Chaturanga. He will take it. And he's back in P4 now. Buddhika Chaturanga left to chase after that. Praveen Peter there going into the pits. And yes, that's Praveen going into the pits. And there's Arshadithika made a big mistake. He's come back on track, and all the drivers are going to have to watch out for the obstacle that is Arshadithika on track. And my goodness, that here between Shahan Silva, Padmaka Gunavardhana there, Vijay Gunavardhana. My goodness, there's so much chaos. Savi Ratnayaka now catching up to lap traffic in Padmaka, and I believe Savi wants to try and get past Padmaka before Buddhika can catch up. Buddhika looking a little far behind Savi Ratnayaka there, but Savi Ratnayaka still right on Padmaka's gearbox. I think Savi would want to make the move as soon as possible before Buddhika could catch up to him. And Savi is going to go the long way around again, but he's going to dive to the inside, tighter racing line. And that should give Savi the run he needs, but it seems Padmaka is not letting Savi go without a fight. I don't know if there's blue flags in this race, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think there are. But Savi and Padmaka, there we go. Savi's going to go inside there side by side, going down the main straight. And yes, I believe that is Savi who has gone back into P. No, wait, he hasn't. It's still Padmaka, and Padmaka's going to spin. Savi has a near heart attack moment there. But my goodness, Oh my goodness, I would love to know what was going through Savi's head there at that very moment. But knock knock, here come Shyamal Mendes, I believe. Yes, that is Shyamal Mendes, who is now right behind Padmaka Vijayagunawardena, not in this race. I don't believe there's blue flags really. So I think the drivers are free to race. NASCAR rules, ladies and gentlemen. But yes, Padmaka put up quite the fight there for Savi Ratnayaka, trying to get past him and effectively gain time before Buddhika could catch up. And having a near race-ending crash there, Savi Ratnayaka did his very best to try and avoid that crash. And that he did. Now we're back with Arshad Iftika, who is trying to hold back, I believe, that is Charit Amarasinghe. Yes, that is Charit Amarasinghe. Not hold back, but rather keep back the slower car. Now we ride at the front with Fawzul Alim, that distinctively red car, the man who went on an absolute rampage in round 2 at Oulton Park, is still on a rampage, trying to keep back Brian Pereira, who is 7 seconds down the road, and there's Shehan Silva, who's gone wide, unfortunately, again at the final corner. This final corner proving to be a very difficult section here in this race, and that's Shyamal Mendes, unfortunately, who's in last place. Oh, the championship has been blown wide open. I did not know Shyamal Mendes was in last place, but my goodness, the championship has been blown wide open. And I believe that's going to allow Harshada Dharmadasa to try and gain a point should he stay in front, and that he is in P9. And now we're on board Tiago Pereira in P5 and briefly cut away to Brian Pereira in P3, who has had quite the comeback drive with near 6 minutes to go in this race and 6 laps. So we should see the end of the race very soon in 6 laps or 6 minutes, whichever comes first. But Brian Pereira slowly whittling the gap down, and I believe that's Fawzul Alim who's losing a lot of time to Brian Pereira. Has something happened to Fawzul Alim there, who's going a little slowly? I think he may go to the pits. Yes, I believe Fawzul Alim is going into the pits. Yes, Fawzul Alim is in the pits, and he's disappeared off the minimap. And Fawzul, that's Tehane Ranga now in P2. We can see the gap slowly bottle up, and that's, yes, Brian Pereira in P1. Brian Pereira has gone up to P1 as Tiago Pereira. That was a very frustrated Tiago Pereira trying to make a move on Padmaka there. But my goodness, that was a very, very risky move from Tiago there, nearly a race ender. He was definitely trying to get past the cars there. But ladies and gentlemen, Brian Pereira, the man who had a bit of a race ender a little earlier on in the race, is now in P1. And Tehane Ranga follows in P2 and Fawzul Alim in P3. The top 3 has completely shifted. And we're back with Tiago Pereira, who is desperately trying to get past Padmaka. And that he does, I think, into Sector 1. They're still side by side. It looks like Padmaka is going to dip into Tiago. And yes, Tiago has got past Padmaka and is now free to charge after, or rather retain his position as we look at a beautiful side by side. Never mind, we join back with Tiago Pereira. Brian Pereira still setting the fastest lap of the race, a 59.3. Evidently getting a little faster, Brian Pereira here. He has played into absolute perfection. The comeback of legends. Brian Pereira, take a bow. But the race is not over yet, ladies and gentlemen. We still have nearly 4 minutes to go and 5 laps completed, or 5 laps to go. Tiago Pereira still in P5, followed by, okay, I think that was Savi in P4, Fawzul Alim in P3, Tehane Ranga in P2, and of course Brian Pereira in P1. That's Savi Ratnayaka we see trying to get past Gesit Tahangamage, who is making it very difficult to get past Savi, but never mind, Gesit has let Savi through. But a wonderful act of sportsmanship there, Gesit. Letting Savi chase after Fawzul Alim, who is 7 seconds off the road, but here at Scuba, anything is doable. Savi Ratnayaka, my apologies, Savi Ratnayaka was the one who set that 59.3, not Brian. Savi Ratnayaka has woken up, ladies and gentlemen, setting a 59.3 in the late stages of this race with 3 minutes to go. Can he make a charge and catch Fawzul Alim in time? Only time will tell as we join back with Tiago Pereira. And now we dip away back to Savi Ratnayaka. Lights flashing away on the rear wing of his car for obvious reasons, the visibility. But the spray right now seems manageable, but all it takes is a driver to go through one puddle, and then it's completely difficult to see. That's, I believe that yes, that is Shevan Vitarana letting Sabi through as well. They are absolutely letting all the drivers through now. It's pedal to the metal as Fawzul Aleem will steal the fastest lap off of Savi Ratnayaka, going 59.2 now. Now we dip away from Savi Ratnayaka for a split second to follow Arshad Iftika, who has the man who set the fastest lap right behind him. I believe Arshad Iftika instrumental in also helping Fawzul set that lap time. But yes, Fawzul Aleem, there we go. We're following Fawzul now. Was that a car? Oh my goodness, that was a car. Shevan Silva, my bad, was spun round at the start-finish straight, losing his rear wing in the late stages of this race. Not something you'd want to see from the drivers now. But Fawzul Aleem setting the fastest lap now with the 59.1. The drivers are getting much faster. And Arshad Iftika giving Fawzul Aleem that fastest lap again with the 59.1. A tenth of a second means a difference here, ladies and gentlemen. Can another driver slap off of Fawzul Aleem now in the late stages of the race? With 1.5 minutes to go in the session, ladies and gentlemen. Brian Pereira, I believe that crash was just enough at a few minutes early on in the race to give him a strategic finish here in the final stages of the race. But my goodness, what a comeback drive from Brian Pereira we have here today. As we're watching Praveen Peter trying to navigate the traffic that is, I believe, Gesit Ngamage. Yes, he lets him through and lets Buddhiga Chaturanga through as well. As Buddhiga Chaturanga is desperately trying to close up to Praveen Peter and gain at least one position before the race ends, as we're entering the mere seconds of the race left. 43 seconds, I believe. We have come to the final lap of the race as we wait and see what the leaders do. Keep your eyes on the minimap, ladies and gentlemen, depending on what those dots will do. And now we're watching Brian Pereira, who will, I believe, set or start the final lap here at Tsukuba for round 4, the feature race. Look, we can see the marshal waving something, and we dip away as we join Savi Ratnayaka now, who makes a wonderful move, albeit on a lap car on Yusuf there. That's Gesit we're following now. Brian is still pretty much racing. We can see his dots still moving, so I believe this is the final lap of the race. It's been an absolutely wonderful drive here for Brian Pereira, who has had a bit of an issue in the earlier stages of this race, but decided to pit and absolutely open the taps and charge up the field to eventually jump everybody on the major undercut here at Tsukuba. But the traffic and the weather made it possible. Remember what I said at the start of the session, the rain is the ultimate equalizer. And I believe that what that means for Brian Pereira as we see him in Tehan Eranga's feed. Tehan Eranga 2 seconds behind Brian Pereira. That's probably not going to be enough for Tehan. As Brian crosses the line, is that the end of the race, ladies and gentlemen? It is the end of the race as we see Brian Pereira come to stop in the middle of the track. That is the end of the race, and Brian Pereira will take P1, the comeback of champions. Brian Pereira, who had an incident at the start of the race, will win the race, followed by Tehan Eranga, Fawzul Aleem, and this man, Savi Ratnayaka in P4, followed by Tiago Pereira in P5. What a drive from Brian Pereira there to round off the final feature race of round 4 of the CMSC iRacing Championship. My goodness, what was impossible became possible. Brian Pereira, take a bow. It was an incredible drive from the initial start where he had that slip up turn into a win here in the feature race. But Tehan Eranga, let's not count him out, chase after him, having finished with a mere 2.7 second gap, followed by Fawzul Aleem in P3, the man who had a rampage last race. Rampage his way up to P3 today. Savi Ratnayaka in P4, followed by Tiago Pereira in P5, Praveen Peter in P6, Buddhiga Chaturanga in P7, and Gesita Hangamage in P8, a top 8 finish for him. Shevan Vitarana in P9, and Padmaka Vijayagunawardana rounds off the top 10 here at Tsukuba. It's been an absolute pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to commentate for you all once again. Please do check Instagram for the results of race 2, as even I do not know what happened. But thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us here on the stream for round 4 of the CMSC Formula 4 iRacing Championship. We'll see you again for round 5, the final round. It's all to play for in the championship, ladies and gentlemen. See you then. Goodbye.